Am I too old to become a screenwriter? I get this question a lot. But first, a story, okay? So when I was in college, I had every part-time job you could get. I valet parked cars, I delivered pizza, I sold t-shirts, I was a grill cook, I did everything. But the smart kids, they had jobs working at the library and the dining hall, basically checking student IDs. And so you'd always see them with a textbook, reading a textbook, and they kind of absent-mindedly swipe the ID. They barely even look. So while I was getting paid, maybe I get paid more than they did, but I was getting paid to deliver pizza, they were getting paid to study. They were smart about it. After I got out of college, I moved to LA to become a screenwriter, but I knew nothing about screenwriting. I took some classes, that was really important, but I also knew I had to start writing because that's the only way to get good at it, is you have to constantly write. So I wanted to find a job where I would basically get paid to write, which means I got lucky. I found a job where I was working for these two showrunners. And so I would answer the phones, right? But the phones never rang. I sat outside their office. And in that time, I was constantly writing. And so, yes, I think I paid a lot of money. I think I was making like $425 maybe a week. Even back then, that's before tax. I was making barely anything, but the way I saw it was just enough. I didn't spend a lot of money. It was just enough to get by and learn how to write. And I'd ask them questions, and I'd go home, and I wasn't too tired to continue writing. And my writing partner, he worked at a record store, and when he wasn't working, he came to work with me. And we both sat outside their office writing our scripts. We wrote at least a dozen scripts together, getting better and better, right? It was never about the money. It was about learning how to write. Now, at the time, I was young, right? So I didn't have any family or friends. I knew no one else in LA. I had no other distractions. All I did was work on how to write. And when you get older, you have other responsibilities, right? You may have a family, you may have friends. Like, there was nothing else for me to do other than work on my craft. And so I was laser focused. It was basically like my version of going to med school. When you go to med school, you live and breathe med school. This was my med school. Now, if you're older, you can do this, but you have other priorities. You may have kids, you may have family, and you may not want to sleep on a futon like I did. My futon was filled with rocks. It was terrible. But when you're young, you can do that. Can you do that when you're older? I don't know. I don't know what your responsibilities are. How much time do you have to devote to your craft? You certainly have more money, probably, right? So you can take a course. You can take my course if you want. So that's one of the advantages of being older. But the suffering part, you may be over the suffering part. So can you do it? Yes. It just might take a little longer. The most important thing, and no one ever asks this question, they always like, how do I sell my screenplay? When I was starting off, that always hits my ear wrong, that expression. How do I sell my screenplay? When I was starting off, it was never even a thought in my head of selling any of the things that I wrote. It was always just a writing sample to prove that I could write, to get work. I never thought ever I would sell any of those scripts. And I didn't. It was always about having a writing sample. So now when people say, hey, I have a script, how do I sell it? I'm like, I don't know, man. It's just not how it works. It's not how I did it. I think the question you have to ask yourself is, how do I write a great script? And then we'll see what happens. But first you need that great script, and everyone always assumes they already have it. I don't know. It just hits my ear wrong. Maybe I'm an old man yelling, get off my lawn. Okay? But if you want to know more about how I do this, get on my newsletter, come to my free webinars, right? It's not that you can't do it when you're older. It just means like it may take a little longer because you have other priorities. Keep following me. I'm Michael Jamin Writer.